Okay, good evening, everyone. Glad to see everybody here in January again. Welcome to our second Thursday meeting of the Houston chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association. So a few bits of news. We're going to have the national meeting. It'll be out in California. My wife and I will be traveling out to that, and everybody can either travel there or participate via Zoom. So hopefully all of you would like to do that. To do that, you do need to be a national member, which does cost a little bit, whereas our local chapter, of course, doesn't charge any dues. So if you'd like to take part in the national activities, then please go online, my EVA, or of course you can do it through the QR code that we have right here in the room. Folks can zap that with their phones and get right into it. So the really special thing, I know some folks in this room have Aptera reservations. The meeting will be at the Aptera facilities. Yeah. So, all right. He's got the shirt too. Yeah, I do recognize the emblem there. Ah, very good. Very good. Okay, you got that then. All right. Yeah, so there will be one other particular reason that some of you might want to watch. I don't know how it happened, but I did hear from Elaine, our national president. She said they're going to be giving out an award for lifetime support of EVs. And it happens to be yours truly who they're going to be giving the award to this year. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, but I think really the Aptera part is why you want to go or participate via Zoom. That's really a super looking car. I'm really excited about that. And so that's one of the things that we've got coming up. The other is here in Houston. The Houston Auto Show is going to have more EV involvement than ever. So if you're all on the distribution list for our big list, I did ask that it be sent out the request for volunteers, both in person and for cars. So it'll start on the 25th of this month, the Houston Auto Show, and it will, as I say, emphasize EVs more than ever. And of course, it'd be great if folks are interested in donating their time. It does run right over the time of the national meeting on that Saturday, the 28th. So I'll only be able to volunteer on the 25th, the very first day. But anyone who's interested, talking about EVs, it's always a fun thing. Hi, guys. And so, yeah, coming out for that would be good. That would be really good. So. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's one way to describe the folks that are out there. Yeah. So good. So those are the two things that I wanted to talk about up front. And then, of course, we have Jon Sweet going to be talking about solar and batteries today. And then we also have Jim, who's going to be talking about full self-driving. And Ken, yeah, you're going to be talking about your Sprite. All right. Very good. Very good. All right. So those are really fun things. And I'm just really happy that we've got 3 members of our chapter talking to us here tonight. It's always nice when we get outside speakers, and we've got some of them coming up. Hopefully next month we'll have someone from Octopus Energy talking about energy plans that include solar buyback, things like that. And they've also got some EV car programs. And then in March, someone from Native Renewables Energy in New Mexico. And so those are things, outside speakers we have coming up. But this month, I think it's really great. And so I didn't know if one of you guys wanted to particularly be first. I think the way that I listed them, I think, was first with Jim's material, and then John's, and then Ken's. We want to go in that order. Okay. So, and Colin, you got Jim's file ready to go. It's always good to have pictures and charts, Excel spreadsheets, and give people good data, things like that. So, all right. And there it is, full self-driving Overton. All right, Jim, do you want to hold the mic?
Oh, there we are. Okay, hi. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. As you can see in a moment, the title is Full Self-Driving. Subtitle is One User's Experience. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been a proud member of this organization for a few years, and I'm a retired geoscientist, seismic guy. And I got very interested in the EVs. I got my first one in 2015, and then I got solar panels on the roof in 2017, and then I got a backup battery system in 2019. So this is a slowly creeping disease, and just warning you. That's great. Okay, there we are. Great, thanks. And is there a version of the slides that I can look at? Can we turn the laptop around, or? Oh, okay, I can look up here. That's fine. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, click please. All right, here's just a raw outline. This is very casual. This is not a technical paper. What is FSD beta? But a lot of people have heard about it. Probably some of you know more about it than I do. How do you get it? What does it cost? That's always a big question. And the cost has been unstable. I'll give you a brief history of FSD, full self-driving beta. How does it really do? I'll show you some videos I made for my own car and some examples that I found online. And what do we have going forward? And I'll just point out, these are a couple of images. I've been experimenting with artificial intelligence. And so these are from the DAL-E 2 program, where I instructed it to draw or to picture Tesla Model X in blue. And it's fitting. Next slide, please, because full self-driving, FSD, is AI-based. So currently, what is it? It's a level 2 autonomous driver assist system. It's aiming to become a full self-driving level 4, which is full autonomy. And this chart kind of summarizes the various levels of offer from Tesla, or historically they first had autopilot and then enhanced autopilot, and more recently full self-driving. And if you can read this slide, you can see the features have grown as these new versions have come along. And we can talk about these. Auto steer was a great one when that came out, in traffic-aware cruise control. If you've had an old-fashioned car with cruise control, this is a big improvement because it will not run into the car in front of you if it's moving at a speed below what you've set your cruise control to. You can see the other categories on here: the navigate and autopilot, auto park. That was fun. That was downloaded in my 2015 Model S, and all of a sudden I could give friends a ride in auto park, either parallel on the streets downtown or back into perpendicular parking. Summon is a work in progress. There's a near summon. You can summon the car out of your garage. It'll open the door and back up to you. And you can also go longer distances, but not on public roads. So if you're in a big parking lot, you can do the summon feature, call it to you. I guess that's actually smart summon, forgive me. And
just when you have a car has parked next to you really close to your driver's door while you've been in a store, and you find that, oh, I'd rather not damage either my car or his car, and I will
absolutely
back out.
Dave, I have been there.
Yeah.
How am I going to get that out? Oh, wait, summon, pull it towards me. All right.
Oh.
All right. Well, so on the far right is the most recent development, the full self-driving with the features checked off in green. And I lifted this chart from Wikipedia, and it needs an update. The auto steer on city streets is fully operational. It's very impressive. I drove here tonight on FSD. It was not perfect. There was a disengagement or two, and I'll talk about those in general. Could I have the next slide, please? All right, and speaking of AI, this is a different AI. This is ChatGPT from a query I made last month. What is FSD beta? Well, ChatGPT is an AI. So here's what it came up with. I won't read this to you, but you can see the highlights here. It's as far as the AI was able to pull from the internet. That also another mistake here. It's rated as level 3, but it is not level 3. It's level 2, autonomous driving. It's under development, and it's presumably going to get better. It has gotten better continuously. Now, the next slide, please. So how does this work? It's neural network based, and that would be a whole talk unto itself if you're not familiar with neural network. But it's a machine attempt to match how the human brain is wired in a neural network. It's based on several vehicle sensors. The modern cars, since about 2019, have had 8 cameras operate the visible light, and also ultrasonic sensors. It relies on those. And it formerly used radar. My Tesla is a 2020 that arrived in December 2019. So it's just over 3 years old. It still had a radar back then. I'm not sure when they discontinued that. And also since spring of 2019, all the cars have had this self-driving chip. It's a Tesla designed chip. They make it themselves, and it's very advanced. It allows the car to manage all these full self-driving maneuvers. And of course, there's a whole lot of training going on. You're training the neural network all the time with data from the cars. The cars are essentially mapping the world as they drive around, with their position as tracked and uploaded to the supercomputer, the dojo at Tesla's headquarters. And so there are hundreds of thousands of Teslas with this gear, and they've traveled at least millions of miles. I wouldn't be surprised if it was billions of miles. And they're always reporting on how the lay of the land, where the roads are, where the exits are, et cetera. All right, next, please, Colin. All right, just to clarify, there are 2 main bodies that have issued autonomous driving levels. I've chosen to go with the SAE. It seems to be the most commonly referred to. There are 5 categories there. And again, you can read these. Level 0 is no autonomous driving, hence 0. And level 1, as you can see here, just means cruise control and adaptive cruise control. And level 2, where Tesla and most other self-driving cars are right now, is the car actually can take full control, and you can sit back. You got to keep your hands on the wheel, or at least update your touch to the wheel periodically. And you got to keep your eyes on the road, because it's beta. It's a work in progress. But this level 2, you can read in the italics here, it's the highest level of autonomy currently available. Level 3 still requires a driver behind the wheel, but you can take your eyes off the road and you can relax a little bit, but you have to be ready to take over when necessary. Level 4, that's where Tesla's aiming. They've announced that the driver isn't even needed. And this would enable robo-taxi service, where the car can operate on its own. Think of it as a driverless Uber or Lyft service. It will in the future get instructions and go pick up people and take them to their destination. Level 5 is the 0 driver, no driver at all, no brake pedals, no accelerator pedal, no steering wheel. The car is fully autonomous, and it goes wherever you tell it, or wherever it feels like going. If it's yeah. All right, depending on the level of control. Next slide, please, Colin. Okay, these are the key features of FSD beta. This could be a much longer list, but these are the main items. Traffic aware cruise control, already talked about that. Auto steer, also known as lane keeping. It reads the lane markings on a road, and it stays within your lane. There's lane departure warning. It'll beep you if you're not in autopilot, but you start to drive over the lane markings. And there's emergency lane departure warning, where it'll actually correct the course of the car and get you back in lane. There's speed assist. That's part of the cruise control. Automatic lane change. I do like that. When you're in FSD, it'll change lanes on a highway, of course. If you're in a slower lane, it'll give you a signal on the dash or a little message changing lanes to faster. Or another message might be changing lanes to follow the route, and it'll switch lanes and continue on its merry way. There is, of course, the forward collision warning, obstacle aware acceleration, blind spot monitoring, which is great. If you go to change lanes manually, and all of a sudden it activates a little alarm, a chiming alarm. It says, well, let's see something that you didn't notice. I mentioned smart summon. Not really there yet. It's a great idea. You can summon the car, but again, no public road, so it's a limited use case. I do like the traffic light and stop sign recognition. If you're in FSD and you come to at street level, if you approach a stop sign, it will honor that stop sign. It will wait for clearance in the intersection and then advance. Same for traffic lights. And auto steer on city streets. That's a new option in addition to auto steer on highways. Please. Next. So how do you get it? You need to purchase the FSD option. We'll talk about the cost of that in a moment, or you can now lease it from Tesla, and the price has really gone up a lot. So the lease rate might be more amenable for some people. You formally needed to add an adequate safety score. This is a shot of on the right side of the screen, my safety score at one time. If you look at the date range, it's only 2 days, because every now and then you could reset your safety score if you weren't happy with it.
That wasn't involved in insurance claims so much as just data from the car.
Right. This is just as on the car performance. I don't know if you can read the fine print there, but it counts the number of times it has provided a forward collision warning.
I do believe that Tesla developed it because they now offer insurance, and your insurance payments can be dependent on your safety score if you have Tesla insurance. So there's kind of overlap there. They're using it for both purposes.
Thank you. Hard braking or aggressive turning, and the last category is unsafe following, and it shows you your scores in those categories, and it comes up with an overall score. Anyway, once you have paid for FSD and once you've gotten the correct score, although I don't think they're using the scoring system anymore, and once you then need to enable it via your in-car menu. So could I have next slide, please? Great. So not the clearest of shots. This is just the smartphone shot of my dashboard. You have to enable it in car, and I realize these are tough to read. But after a while, I noticed I wasn't getting a safety score anymore. I couldn't find the switch to show my safety score. I said, why is that? It turned out it's because I had FSD enabled, FSD beta. I didn't know it. They didn't send me a notice that I noticed. So I ended up searching online and went to Tesla Motor Club and was running inquiries on how do I know if I have FSD or not, and how do I start it? We have to set these switches on. Their default is off with it's one circled in red, which are full self-driving beta. Of course, that has to be on. And there are a couple of other options you need to turn on. And once you get that all set, then you find if everything else is in order that you have FSD beta. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Now, what does this cost? Here's a screen grab from a couple of years ago when the price went up by $3,000 to $15,000. So you go to buy a new car, and all of a sudden, if you want this super duper feature you've been hearing about, it's $15,000 more. And the price has stayed at 15 since then, as far as I know, as far as I can find out. Right.
So it's only 10 now.
Is it worth it? Let's go to the next slide, please. So here's another headline. I have several headlines in here. Tesla makes great clickbait. So a lot of online places, sites put Tesla headlines up. So some people thought it wasn't worth $15,000. Do I think it's worth $15,000? I don't know. I think it's a cute gimmick, and it's getting better all the time. Like I said, I drove over here. It was dark. I don't do a lot of driving at night now, so that was very helpful to have the FSD drive the car over here. So if you go to the configurator on the Tesla site and try to buy a new Model S, I couldn't find a place where it presented an option for FSD. Not sure why. And you can see, I'm not sure when I captured this screen, but probably in the last month or two when I was putting these slides together, Model X now is $121,000. So you would hope that includes the 15, but I really don't know. Next slide, please.
That's all. Okay. So,
All right, I know what you're getting at. No, is the short answer. All right. What it did do is the address for this place is a number on navigation. So drove along navigation and stopped or said arrived at that numerical location on navigation, didn't know about pulling down that long winding driveway and over to the TXRX shops here. All right. Thanks for that. Anyway, in the background here is the sales invoice from my purchase. As I said, it was October 2019, car arrived December 2019. Back then, highlighted in red, full self-driving, as Emma noted, was only $6,000. It's currently more, $15,000. And Tesla is pushing the subscription for $199 a month. And that may be why you don't see the option to buy it when you spec out a car at the Tesla site for purchase, because I think they're wanting to mainly do subscription sales now. And that subscription pricing is $199 a month. And yeah, I believe you can turn it on and off. So if you don't like it, you can stop paying it. If you don't need it for a while, same thing. And if you do need it, you can resubscribe. Next slide, please. Okay, brief history of FSD. Thank you for the little chuckle there. I have to chuckle at this one. The early days promises, summon your car in California from New York. That they really said that. Elon said that you can be in New York and your car can be in California. You can summon it. Not today, but it'll be coming. That hasn't come yet. Enroll your car in robo-taxi fleet and earn money while not using the vehicle. That sounded appealing to me. The car's expensive, maybe for a night or 2 weeks while I'm out of town. I can enroll in the robo-taxi fleet and have the car make money for me while it drives people around. I don't know. I should have put a little image on here of the snake. Does anybody remember the snake? Yeah, I see lots of heads nodding. That was, I guess, done as a proof of concept, but it was never released. The snake lives up to its name. It's like a charmed boa constrictor or whatever. It's a freaky snake. It's metallic and ribbed, and then it can find the plug-in port and connect. Or at least it could for the few weeks or months that they were promoting that, but it was never released. I like the concept. I don't know if they'll ever go back to that. No doubt. And also, one of the early promises was the vehicle will enter a parking structure after dropping you off, hunt for a space. Seriously, they said this was going to happen. And then when you're ready, it'll show itself out of the parking structure. And I don't doubt that's going to happen someday, but I don't know when.
Sensors. Right.
Oh, the indicators, red and green for open and closed spaces. Right. My local HEB.
So if your credit card is declined and the machine can't exit.
Yeah. Details. I'm sure there's an AI solution for that. At any rate, so the hardware was keeping pace with all the software advances. My 2015 Model S had hardware 1, then in December of the next year, they came out with hardware 2, which provided ramp on to ramp off machine controlled driving on highways. So the full self-driving or the autopilot or advanced autopilot mainly worked on highways at first. And it was capable of auto lane changing and going from highway to highway via the exits and on-ramps. And then the traffic aware cruise control came out the next year with the lane tracking, lane keeping. Next year after that, 2018, Navigate on Autopilot came out. It suggested lane changes. Then you had to confirm by pressing the turn indicator switch. And then the next year after that, hardware 3, which I believe is what we're still using, if you're buying new, completely automated lane changes. So as I said, I got my car in late 2019, so I presume I have hardware 3. And then September 2020, enhanced autopilot to distinguish from just autopilot. You can read the paragraph here. It can now add medium speed city travel. So that was a big advance, going from highways only to major roads, arterials. To today, it can handle just about any street I put it on that has lane markings or curbs. And then November of 2022, FSD beta was extended to all owners in America, in North America, that had purchased the option. So again, I think that's another reason why there's no longer safety scoring that I can find going on. Okay. So how well does it do? My take personally, it's under continuing development. We all know that. That's why it's called beta. Over the air updates every few weeks. I like that aspect. And it's always adding improved capabilities. Some you don't notice. Some, just like when you update apps on your smartphone, it says we made it better, but you never know what exactly. It does very well on highways. Like I said, it drove me here very nicely tonight. It controls the speed, it changes the lanes. It is also usable on urban street settings, stopping for stop signs and traffic signals. But it's not perfect. It can miss an exit or an entrance. But I didn't say this. You have to have the navigation activated, and it has to have a target to go to. So if you want to go to the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, you have to put that into the navigation system, and then it'll take you there. Otherwise, it doesn't know where it's going. It can miss exits and entrance ramps on highways, and I've had both of those happen. And there's one particular spot on the West Loop where there's an impromptu construction-only exit to Highway 69, and it can never see that for some reason. So I have to intervene and make that happen. So construction zones are an issue, and it also does not recognize and respond to school zones or speed bumps. You can hit those at full speed, or potholes. I didn't put that on a slide, but I went through one tonight. Reminded me. So again, not perfect, hopefully improving. Next slide, please. All right, here's an example of using the FSD on a highway where it's the most reliable. We're just heading around. You can see the map of the destination. You have to first enter a destination for FSD to operate. Here's the dashboard display. The narrow blue line indicates that you're in full self-driving mode and you're tracking along. On this slide here, we're a little bit, this is not the next slide. Here we go. On this slide here, we're a little closer to the destination. You can see things are more or less the same. We got the narrow blue line. And the system, the FSD, is going to suggest changing lane to follow route, upcoming lane change. If I wanted to, I could cancel it on the large screen. And we'll just look up here, changing lanes to follow route. And you can see on the screen the target that the car moved over to. We're now tracking along in the next lane. So that was successful, no intervention required. Now it's gonna propose another lane change, but there's no lane to change into. So I would call this an unsuccessful guidance, and it's necessary for me to take action here. And I think the cause here is the construction. Some of the lanes that used to exist are now blocked off during the construction phase. There's the message, upcoming lane change. Now there is an entrance ramp here, but that doesn't count as a lane. Still telling me upcoming lane change. I just had to stop it because there was no lane there. Next, I had to cancel the lane change. Sometimes you have to do that. So again, I have to turn the wheel. I have to prove that I'm here. So there's my right button, my finger hitting the button and accidentally turning the camera. And I'll show that again. It's a real quick one. So upcoming lane change, but I had to cancel it because I didn't want to get over another lane. That would put me on the wrong part of the exit. Canceled. Whoops. And now it did on the next opportunity have a successful lane change. I was happy with this. So now on the exit ramp, and you can see the message changing lanes, lane change ahead, tap to cancel. So it correctly changes lane here, which I appreciate. But the lane I'm now in, you can see splits. I can go left to an HOV lane or right for the main lane. And I wanted the right, so I manually disengaged it. You can see the blue steering wheel icon on the dash has become unlit, which is indicating we're no longer in FSD. We're still in autopilot. We're still in traffic aware cruise control, and that's why this icon here shows up in green. Coming again. And I was happy with this. It doesn't always hit the exits correctly or the entrances. So that's one of the times you have to be most aware. And here it correctly found the exit without me having to guide it. And it turned down the speed on the ramp from 60 on the highway to 50 on the ramp. Here it's telling me in 0.2 of a mile, it's going to make a left. So far so good. Quickly made this highway exit. And we pull up to the traffic signal where we're going to make a left-hand turn. But as you'll see in a moment, the signal turns to red just as we get there. And the car sees that. If you look on the dashboard display, it shows yellow and red on the real life display. So we're stopped here. It turned the wheel a little bit to the right, perhaps because there was a panhandler there on the curb. So a little further down that road, having made the left turn successfully, we're coming down that road. Oh, no, sorry. This is at that road. We're making a left-hand turn, doing it correctly, no intervention needed. And we're approaching a red light that turns green, and the car senses that, goes correctly through the intersection. We're approaching another intersection, red light, and turns green, and we can go through that. So far, so good on this segment. Now we're going to start the tapes rolling again, the recording. We're going to make a left turn from Bins onto the crossing street. But first, there's a stop sign. Car quickly identifies that, slows down and stops. And then you could debate who has the right of way here, but the car decided it did, and it makes a left in front of that stopped yellow Jeep and heads on down the cross street. So far, so good. And I believe this is the last or next to last little video clip here. We're approaching a stop sign at an intersection, four-way stop intersection. You can see there that little message on the dash that was in orange said autopilot is creeping forward to get a view. And now we're going to pull up to an intersection with a four-way stop and then make a left turn. You can see we're 300 feet away from that intersection. And the car in front of us is stopped. It goes. We pull up to the stop line, and the car is creeping forward as it notifies me by the dash message. And it's checking and checking. And you can see the car coming in from the right. And the one approaching, it decides it's clear, has right of way, off it goes. I am not handling the steering wheel or the pedals. And right here at this garage is the destination address we gave it, and it's now stopped. That concludes a little example of a few quick clips of FSD beta in action. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So
Here's more Tesla FSD in the news. Does that have a date on it? Yeah, January 9th. Tesla plans to remove full self-driving beta driver monitoring feature. Regulators are concerned. So it does two types of monitoring. I mentioned the wheel torquing. The newer Teslas, I think the 3s and the Ys, also have driver cameras. And I find that wheel thing, which is what they're talking about here, Tesla drivers call it the nag. It has been more and less sensitive through the years. It was very blasé when I first got it, but recently you can't go more than a couple of minutes at highway speeds when you have to be pressuring the wheel or you get nagged. At very slow speeds, like today, I was stuck in a traffic jam on the South Loop coming over here, going at about 9 miles an hour, and I went a long ways without having to hold the wheel. So it's sensitive to that. Other FSD news. This is just from this week. Footage of Tesla phantom braking causes 8-car crash pile up. Wouldn't you click on that? So in the red circle, you can see the Tesla. This address down here has the video, which since we can't show videos, I'd like to say it's spectacular, but yeah. All right, but that's not a live link, unfortunately. That's just text in my slide. There may be a workaround for that.
Yeah, maybe at the end of
Yeah.
tonight, we'll
All
call
right.
that up.
All right, I get it. This guy's gone on long enough. So anyway, that white Tesla, you can see in the full video, it turned on a signal and it pulled over and stopped. And they were calling it phantom braking. Who here has ever suffered from phantom braking? Yeah. Has it not gotten better the last few months? I almost have it never now. It used to be bad. Phantom braking, for those who don't know, is the car suddenly applies the brakes. It could be gently, mysterious slowdowns, or it could be very hard. And it used to freak out my regular passenger who I'm married to. Right. And however, it almost never happens now. And when it does, it's more gentle. It just slows the car down. The things that used to trigger it would be overpasses, warning signs and things like that. But anyway, when phantom braking does occur, it doesn't turn on an indicator signal and it doesn't pull over. So I don't think this really was a phantom braking incident. Next slide, please. All right, this is the last slide. Here's more Tesla in the news, although this is not FSD, true confession. From January the 10th in Pasadena, California, somebody confused the brake and the gas pedal, drove through a retaining wall and ended up in a pool. Right. And certainly not FSD. And I don't know if many of you saw this story on the right, Dateline January 4th. This driver just drove his family off a cliff, apparently intentionally. They all turned out fine. 250-foot fall.
Yeah, people have commented on, yeah, the car did well in a crash like that.
Yeah, imagine. Okay, next and last slide, please. Okay, here is a big thank you. Appreciate your patience. I don't know if you can make out this image here, but I asked the image generator, the AI image generator for Tesla Model X with Falcon wing doors open, blue, side view, abstract. And it did a really funny thing with the Tesla Model X. So AI has a ways to go.
That's good. You have double doors in the back, you know, a separate reserve door. You know, you
two-
open one and you still have a door there protecting you.
Is it a 2-door or a 4-door at this point?
Yeah. Lots of doors. Okay, Colin, what is it you're seeing here in the chat? Okay. Do one of those. And
Whenever I have a place, I have a question.
got questions for you online folks.
Yeah.
Do this. Oh, you need, okay. Jim, flashing yellow lights like at intersections, does the Model X slow down for those?
It does.
Okay. Because the Model 3 does it. And it takes a flashing yellow light like either caution or like it's a yellow light that's about to turn red.
Yeah, of course, that.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just kind of pick things that look like good questions for you. What are the legal ramifications of using self-drive should it have an accident while under its control? What do you think, Jim?
The legal ramifications. I think the driver holds the ultimate responsibility.
Okay.
Depends on how wealthy the driver is.
Yeah,
I'll take the
lawyers
pockets.
can do magic, yeah. Okay, all right. So the rest just look like comments about our.
Jason, thank you
connection.
about the sharing. That's good to know.
Yeah, thanks. Can you do cruise, which is why the statement earlier about level 2 being the highest is wrong. Cruise is level 4. Okay, so yeah, I mentioned that cruise is offering the auto
Oh,
taxi
I
in
guess I stand corrected.
couple of restricted cities. Yeah, restricted to a couple of cities. Yeah, and then the comment about wouldn't Tesla just maneuver around with the police car stop in front of it? It depends. I mean, if probably there were a couple of police cars. I mean, you put a kind of a line of police cars in front of it. It's
Right.
got nowhere to go. It's not going to drive off the road, I don't believe, to
But if
pass
there's
the
only,
cars in front. If the cars in front are blocking both lanes,
right,
most autobahns are really just 2 lanes. People think
Okay.
autobahns are these big wide things, but most autobahns are just 2 lanes in each
Ah.
direction. 2 police cars would be enough to get it to stop. January update will remove it if you have done 10,000 miles.
yeah,
That's
good
the-
clarification, Robert.
Okay.
Taking away that driver monitoring system is only for people who have 10,000 miles on FSD.
Mhm. And then Jason, why is phantom braking such a huge problem in Teslas? I've never had it happen in any other car I've driven with TACC over many, many hours of road trips, but only about 5 hours of driving Tesla had it happen twice. The one thing, and here we talked about Cruise and Tesla, they're developing their technology independently, and I think they're kind of going down different paths. And I believe Tesla's trying to be more universal. They're using less mapping, whereas some of these others, they've mapped out all the roads, and that's why you can only drive in Phoenix and San Francisco, because they've mapped out the roads sufficiently. Tesla's trying to let the car drive on any road, anywhere.
It's
Just
the general
like you or
case.
I could drive into a new place and drive on the roads. And so that, I think, is a difference in approach. And I'm thinking, this is just my own opinion, why things like the phantom braking are coming up is because it's experiencing things new all the time. Whereas the other companies are just depending on, you might say, the memory, the things being well mapped, and it's just going on, this is where the lanes are and so forth. Whereas Tesla's using its cameras and deciding where the lanes are. So, yeah.
The other companies are, I guess, the other companies are using other additional hardware besides the camera. And some of what I've read about the phantom braking is with the camera only system, under certain lighting conditions, the camera gets confused.
Yeah, that would be logical. Yeah, if you're not using radar, LiDAR as much, and ultrasonic sensors, I believe, were taken out of cars for a while. I don't even know the status of that. Something on the radar that I read is that they've now said that they might be putting a radar back in because new high definition radars have been developed for cars.
What are the other companies that have anything close, and are they close, and what are their costs?
What companies offer something similar and what does it cost? I don't know what companies. Does anybody in the audience know companies that sell something like FSD?
None of the other companies that are offering something that the general consumer can use. We've talked about Cruise and their robo taxis. We've talked about Google and their robo taxis in limited areas, but those are all company owned vehicles.
Yeah, the closest thing would probably be Super Cruise and high-end Cadillacs or high-end Chevys. Yeah, Blue Cruise.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag of whether it's stuff you can own or it's just on the roads. You may be passing a car that's got one of these other technologies. So, all right.
Does that cover it?
I think that covers it. So thanks so much, Jim. We
Of
really
course.
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Jim, it's not infrequent that I approach a red light and, the lenses are highly directional and maybe the wind is blowing or something and you don't see it because of the way the unit is facing. Is Tesla ever had a problem seeing a red light from your perspective? I suspect that the camera or whatever senses the red is much more sensitive than the human eye and perhaps sees stuff that we can't see.
Anyway, to answer your question, it has never failed to see and stop for a red light or slow down and stop for a yellow light. In fact, sometimes when I'm driving with that giant windshield and the sun is setting and coming right in my eyes, I cover that with a visor and I just look at the screen display, which shows me what the light status is, traffic signal.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jim. That's just really good information. Now we have John with some more good information on a totally different topic.
This is a
So-
lot shorter and a lot less put together.
So you want to go ahead and hold that. So this,
your info too, right?
Yeah, mine's an Excel spreadsheet. And we're just gonna
Right.
click on that little link.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Okay, so I'm into solar. Then I got into EVs. And I also like a lot of generators, different types. It's kind of what I'm into. I've had solar since 2011, actually installed in 2012 by me. And then 13, I put in a battery system with another set of solar. And
I forwarded to you.
that battery system was on a completely separate set of panels. And so I've had it for what now? 10 years. No, they're both on grid. They actually pump into the batteries until the batteries are full and then they go on grid. It's called an outback system. So it's both. Go back up.
Go back up. Do you
Yeah,
see it?
DH.
This one.
Yes, one.
Yep.
Go to the link that's over here in the blue. Yeah, go to the first. You've got to hit the HTTP. Yeah, there you go. Okay, this is a website that kind of explains what goes on with the grid when solar hits. So first of all, this first curve is like April. It's a really small picture and I'm sorry, but the red is April, the green is like October, and then summer, and then winter on the. So she's gonna blow it up for us. So anyway, what happens in the morning is we all get up in the morning about 8 o'clock and this is a usage curve of power that the grid sees. Okay, so we're all asleep at 5 o'clock in the morning, then we all wake up about 8 o'clock. I'm kind of going to go through what happens with the grid when we add solar to it. So this is the basics for it. And then I'll get into a new way that they're doing things to solve the problems that are coming up with solar. And then one that I came up with that can help as well. So we get up in the morning, this ramp of electricity is us cooking breakfast.
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah.
So I can actually keep going. We ramp up really fast in the morning and
Yeah.
the grid operators have to bring on more and more power as this morning operation comes along, and they're really good at it. They can look at past data from the day before, the week before, the last year at the same time, and they can predict how much power is going to be needed to take care of the demand that is coming up in the mornings and then late afternoon. And all afternoon, or all from the morning to the afternoon, air conditioners are running and we've got stuff going on that, can we not show that? Yeah, to the PowerPoint. Because this is all math. Who cares? There it is. The web. That's the website.
Yeah, it was the website.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so like about 8 o'clock in the morning, everybody gets up and this ramp that comes up in the summer and the winter. The utility guys are looking at it and they're bumping in more and more power, more and more generation stations are coming online. And then when they need the power, those generation stations are actually powering up to help that demand. Happens in the afternoon also, late evening when everybody gets home from work and plugs in their car and such. This is the United States. In England, they have tea time in between like 3 and 4. And so that whole curve in the afternoon moves over. Seriously, it moves over and then it dips down again and it comes up in the evening when everybody gets home from work. It's a little different. So every country is different. This is the United States.
imagine that tea time.
Tea
Yeah.
time. Everybody turns on their teapot, you know, that pulls power.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those electric kettles.
Go down to
Exactly.
the next, scroll down to the next,
Scroll.
yeah, right
Yeah.
there.
Uh-huh.
So this is a typical curve from like 8 to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. of solar coming online and then peaking out around 1 o'clock because we're on daylight savings time most of the year. It's 1 o'clock instead of high noon, it's 1. And then peaks out and comes back down about 8 o'clock. Or 6, that says 6. So anyway, that's what the solar looks like. And when we add these two graphs together, scroll down a little bit more. Okay, so the demand curve is the blue one. The orange curve is what happens when we add solar on the bottom to the demand curve. And it kind of looks a little bit of a wave. It takes out some of the midday crunch and all of the morning crunch is gone.
And there's the duck.
And no, it's further down actually. Actually,
Okay.
show another.
Okay.
So when we add more and more solar, we've gotten rid of the morning problem with having to ramp up, but the afternoon problem is now an enormous problem. So ramping up our grid from a very low point that we've hardly ever seen before to a very high curve into the top of that duck. They actually drew a duck in there. Isn't that funny? So that's the duck curve. That's the explanation. Putting on generation, if they're not on top of it, we could actually crash this grid. They've done it in Germany, and they came very, very close in all of Europe of losing those grids, but things shut down around Germany and let them crash. So anyway, bringing on more and more power is hard to do at this point in most states because that ramp is hard to predict, and it's not that they can't go to last year's. Oh well, this is just like last year's. No, last year they didn't have as much solar, so every day they put on more solar, this curve changes. So it's not predictable, and it gets worse in time. It is predictable week to week, but if there's a cloud that day, it messes everything up. Or if it's half day, there's a cloud. So they have that problem. Go back up to the one that showed solar, please. That one. When you buy a solar system, you buy you put up enough solar for your house. The number one thing you think about is how many panels can I get on my house? How many panels can I get on my house is the thing you buy. And that's the first thing you have to think about. And then you buy an inverter to take care of it. And that inverter takes care of the entire curve. It ramps up with, and it peaks out with that solar and comes back down. But the top of the line you buy, if you have 10,000 watts, you buy a 10,000 watt inverter to handle it. Because that's what you're going to get towards that day. It's not quite that, but anyway, you get that. You have to buy a 10,000 watt inverter to keep that going. Okay. I forgot to mention that part. Go all the way down to the bottom or almost all the way. There is another curve And this is how they're fixing it. Right now, they're putting in more and more battery systems. So they're taking this extra solar, they call it extra, but it's not really extra. They're taking the solar that is beyond the demand of the house, and they're dumping that into a battery. So those batteries are getting bigger and bigger, and they're actually putting them online on the utilities so that they can pull that solar panel, those solar energy from the curve, from the usage curve, and put that in their batteries and wait for that highest duct curve. This green line is the optimal grid buffer. They don't want to produce more power than what they have to, basically. And so they're using the batteries to bring that last part of the curve up, and the middle part, they're using the batteries to not let it dip as far down. Okay, so this is the way they're fixing it. This is great. I have a different way.
All right. So your
go to my
spreadsheet.
Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And then go to the, I guess, yeah, Excel all the way to the end. There we go. Okay, so what I did was I put up at the top, it says 10,000 watts of solar. I brought my inverter down from 10,000 watts down to 2,000 watts. That's a 5 times less inverter. And I'm taking all that power and I'm putting it in a battery that's 3 times bigger than the solar output. So it's a 10,000 watt solar install with a 2,000 watt inverter and a 30,000 watt battery. That's what I have at my house. So that's part of what I have at the house. If you go to the sheet 2, please. That's just the graph. I've kind of blown it up a little bit. So the blue is pumping into the battery and taking care of 2,000 watts. And it goes 24/7 after that. So I'm taking the whole curve and just moving it up. No, moving it down, sorry. Taking the demand curve and moving it down. So that the batteries now, so that the batteries now are running 24/7. The inverter's running 24/7 and the solar only runs during its time. Now you say, well, what if it's not sunny that day? I'm not helping at all. I am, because if it's sunny just a little bit that day, I'm taking the duck head off of that curve because it's able to push out at that worst possible time.
Because of batteries.
But
Yeah.
it's charging.
You charge initially
and inverting at the same time.
and inverting load.
Correct.
And when you're done charging, when do you use your batteries up? At night?
The batteries are being used continuously. The solar comes into battery chargers and the battery chargers push into the battery. The inverter's on all the time, pushing, and I can adjust how much output I want to output from that inverter at any point. So yes, the batteries push in, or the solar pushes into the batteries push the inverter, and the inverter's on all the time.
Are you completely off grid?
That system could be.
When
No,
do you?
I'm not, because I
when-
have a 3,000 watt
Sorry.
air conditioner that has to start.
When do you pull energy out of the battery?
All day, every day.
When it's not being charged?
Correct.
Okay.
Because there's enough surplus going into the battery during only the batteries or only the solar part of the day. There's enough power going into the battery to run that inverter all day, every day.
So you mentioned about your AC coming on. So that's a concern, that startup.
This is only my house. This is only running all the 120 circuits.
Okay.
So my AC and the oven and all that work 220. So it's completely separated.
It's separated.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's pulling off the grid,
It just pulls off the grid for those
which
higher voltage things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying on the chemical day, you don't use.
If you looked at your consumption curve, you're flat. You don't have an electric bill.
Correct. Because I only use about 200 to 300 watts a day with the TV on and lights on. Maybe the computer brings it up to 400. So yeah, it's nothing.
So if you have a solar panel system and it's producing more than what you consume, your demand is for your home, and that company does the buyback or whatever for that, you don't have batteries. Basically, you're using the grid as the battery.
Correct.
Okay. And then at night you're pulling back from that so that hopefully you're evening out and hopefully having zero. So that doesn't help any of this.
It does if it's 1-to-1. It's no longer 1-to-1 in Texas. No, actually, that's the worst case.
That's what creates the duck.
Now, if utilities did this instead of 10,000 watts, if the utilities did this at 2 megawatts a spot,
Right.
they could dump.
So
they could be a peaker that could run 24/7.
So this puts the onus on the utility companies to be able to do this, get the batteries set up and everything else. So this has been some of my thinking as well. And I just
Right.
wanted to throw that out there. And I happen to have a propane generator, 24,000 watt generator as a backup as well. Just 24,000. Yeah, it's a big one. It's Generac type one. And just in case that happens. So I'm just kind of thinking through some of those things.
So I also have a generator. I didn't want to bring it up, but I can't produce what was shown on the website was a little bit of battery at the end, right? To take care of the duck head part of that curve. I can't do that. There's no way for me, for my inverter. I can't program my inverter to do that. I can program it to do this. So that's why I came up with this. It just happened. So the people that are building the ones that are running the utility size batteries and they're taking care of the big hit at the end of the day, they can become like a generator that can come on almost instantaneously instead of waiting for a generator startup. Takes about 20 minutes to get it all warmed up and everything, and then it start producing power. About 30 minutes it takes to start up a generator. They have them on all the time. They have, like, if it's a 5-run generator station, they have at least one of them running, and then maybe 2, and then later on in the day they'll fire up the other 3, even if they don't need them. They're fired up, and
and we're paying for it. So they come
waiting for the peak to come up, and it will take those generators up as the day goes on. But if that guy didn't punch the button to make those things happen, that's when the power grid has problems.
So you mentioned about
The-
utilities putting batteries on. It also can be done by private companies. It was rather interesting. We had a speaker at the local chapter of the Houston Renewable Energy Group, and the speaker was a lawyer who specialized in real estate. I thought, this is rather strange. So what we found out when he spoke was that the most in-demand properties are next to substations in 1 acre or so sizes, because these companies can get that property, connect into the substation with their batteries, and arbitrage electricity. Buy low, sell high.
There's one in Pearland. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is they're doing that part of it. They can also do this and shrink the size of their inverter, because their inverter doesn't have to be the same size of their solar power. They're not doing solar, but some of these that are doing solar, putting in inverters and batteries, can shrink the size of their inverter, save money, and put all that money into batteries.
Yeah.
And become a peaker that can happen 24/7 and be online in an instant.
Yeah, so glad that you brought that out, because people don't realize how much fuel is burned just in case it's needed on peakers that aren't actually powering the grid, but they're
And it's not
needed
just-
to be online before it's needed,
not
because
just peakers, just
that
ones
drive-
that are running every day.
or
They
just
every
run.
day.
Yeah, exactly.
Some peakers in Dallas haven't started from a year. And what they do is they start one, and the next day they start the next one. and shut this one off and start the next one. keep it running.
Ah, okay.
So they're all have been running
Right,
at least
right.
once a week.
Yep.
I
So,
have one more
Yeah.
thing I wanted to talk about, and that's on sheet 3, completely different subject.
okay.
This is a little math. You don't have to worry about the math. I'll tell you about it. So what I did was, I like to run generators, and I started messing around with generators and my car, trying to charge my car with a generator. All the nice generators that say they're 3 TBD or whatever percent or less, they won't work. It has to be an inverter type generator, at least for my 2 cars. It has to be an inverter type generator, which has a way lower.
About the quality of the sine wave and.
Correct.
How much-
If there's a little hiccup in the engine, the ones that aren't inverter, the car just says, nope, I don't like it.
Right.
Or yeah, it's not clean enough for the car.
Quality of the sine wave. Okay.
And it might be a grounding issue, because even on the inverter type, you have to either buy one that is grounded and the neutral is grounded, or you take one of the plugs, the 120 plugs, and you take a cord. I didn't bring it, forgot it, and take the neutral and the ground and wire nut them together, wire nut the other one by itself, and just plug that in, and now you're grounded. So if you're going to do this in a campsite or what have you, it is possible, but get an inverter type. I don't know how to do it with the other ones. I don't know if you have to actually drive a ground rod in and ground it, and then ground the neutral to that scares me, and I'm an engineer, so I'm not going to do that. But okay, so gas was $2.70. It didn't come up right. I ran 1400 watts, was this 12 amps through a 3000 watt generator for 4.5 hours. It ran out of gas. It took 1.3 gallons. If you do the math, it comes out to be about 21 miles per gallon, 21 miles of charge per gallon with that generator. So you can buy more efficient generators, I'm sure, and you can buy cheaper gas, which is another efficient way to do it. And that's what I did with the Kroger. I got $1 off. So if you put the same amount of cost of the gas into the generator, I got 33 miles of charge out of the same cost of the gallon. So there's possible to do efficient gas or more efficient generators and get more out of it. But I was just playing around with it, wanted everybody to know.
So that sounds like a pretty practical way to get 20 miles out of your, add it in your vehicle when you're, say, camping.
On a pinch, or
In a real pinch. But I think it's important to compare that to the MPGE that you see advertised on most cars, which is up closer to 100. So we're looking at 20% efficiency
There-
to use a typical portable generator and the inverter to do that.
I'm about to do some math on you.
Yeah.
All right, somebody whip out their
Okay.
camera or their phone and put in a gallon of gas has 33,700.
kWh.
Actually it's watts. I don't want to do it.
I'll hold this.
33,700 watts
I'm
per
not-
gallon.
I'm not saying it's not practical in a pinch. I'm saying that it highlights the inefficiencies of a portable generator,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
inverter and the
It can-
battery and the charger and all of that contributing.
With my cars, it's 134.8 per gallon. Just doing the math.
Okay, so I was
So-
being conservative and saying 100. So 20 out of 134 is even less than 20% efficiency.
Yes.
So we're
it's-
losing a lot to do this, but as you say, it'll definitely work in a pinch and it's pretty straightforward.
It's easy. And I'm just playing around with it. I'm just seeing how long it takes to charge my car for just a weekend's worth of driving. Coming to the Houston Electric Auto Association meeting, it would probably take, maybe 2 gallons for me,
So how long did this take to get your 20-mile range?
4.5 hours.
4.5 hours. Okay.
Now that's at 12 amps. The lowest I can go is 8 amps. So that takes a lot longer. It's like 3.5 miles per hour, 3.5 miles of charge per hour at
At 8
8
amps.
amps. And this is 6 at 12. And I'm kind of squeaking by at the 6. I haven't really figured out if it's actually 6 or 7 or 5.5, or it just depends on, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah,
So this was a 3K.
campers.
So how big was your generator? So you
It's
were
a
pulling,
3,700.
okay, so you're running at
peak, and
about
it's
half load,
3,000.
so it'll
It's
do that all
3,000.
day.
It's 3,000 watts, yeah. And that was Westinghouse, this one. And I'm sure there's, the Hondas may be better, but I'm not gonna spend $3,000 on that generator just to play around. And this is, you can put the price of the generator into this if you want to just charge with it and everything gets worse. But the generator's not for this, it's for backup for.
Yeah, there's a number of folks that have generator anyway, and I can imagine somebody having it in the back of their pickup, and someday in the future, a friend of theirs with an EV is stranded on the side of the road because they didn't pay attention to what was on the screen, and their buddy can go, give them enough juice to get off the shoulder of the highway and get somewhere. Well, yeah, everything it has to be done correctly to get it to work. But as we get more and more EVs on the road, and we all know that there's people that manage to run out of gas on the road. I mean, that still happens. So some of those people are going to be future EV drivers. I mean,
the Lightning is supposed to be able to provide that.
right.
Theoretically.
Yeah, so you buy the fully equipped Lightning and it'll have that capability for folks that have their own generator that might be able to go help a buddy or something like that.
Correct, yeah.
It's
All
It's propane, yeah.
All the generators that are dual fuel are, yeah, they go down on their wattage but I think I don't even want to know about propane yet. I don't have one.
Okay, all right, very good. Thanks.
It's just a low harmonic frequency generator. It just doesn't
Step
have the
wave.
inverter after the
They use diodes to create a step wave, so it just flips the AC back and forth. It's not
but it
creating a
is-
sine
but
wave.
It is because it's a rotating machine. It's a pure sine wave. It's just not clean enough for the car. Or
Okay,
a lot of my cars, my Chevys say, no, I don't like it. It doesn't even turns it on orange and just stays on orange like it's
yeah,
about
so
to start.
there's different grades, and in fact, one place where you can see them easily, if you need to buy a UPC, a uninterruptible power supply for a computer or something else that you don't want to have go off in the middle of something, there's different grades. The ones that are step waves, the ones that are, they call modified sine waves, and then pure sine wave. Yeah, and pure sine wave is, obviously it costs more for the equipment, but that's what you need.
My inverter, my Outback inverter will charge both my cars. Outback is my solar inverter that I can play with that battery with.
What do you have for cars?
The Volt and the Bolt, both Chevys, yeah.
Very good, very good. All right, thanks a lot, John. Yeah. Okay. Ken, yeah.
So while we're still on the topic, or at least on the topic we were on before that, Colin, could you pull up a website? Could you go to ERCOT.com, ERCOT.com? I
Okay.
don't know how many nerds there are who have this on their speed dial or if you scroll down a little bit to there's a link, a button in the middle somewhere that says view all dashboards.
He wants to do a share for our friends online here.
So I was view all dashboards. Hit that big blue button. There we go. And if you'll scroll down just a little bit more on the right, we see the current fuel mix. Now
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that was available real time.
this is something they've added within the last few months. I made a snapshot of this a couple of days ago when wind and solar together were just over 50% of the total load at this time of day. But yeah, well, it's dark. All right, not but this is live. That's live. Yeah. Yeah, so they've got current day and previous day and forecast next day on the other chart. There we go.
Oh, very good.
So you can see the blue in this case is
Black.
Yeah, the flat one. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The nuclear is the absolutely flat. The almost flat is the coal.
Fullest baseline almost.
Yeah. I think
Natural gas.
power storage, that's your big batteries that you were talking about.
These other like water generators.
Biogas. There we go. Wind. Wind has been big this this past few what is all.
This is the beach side. I haven't put one.
Yeah, I think I've heard the numbers crept up to like 26% of Texas average is wind power now.
I'd
The-
heard
the-
things like that. And that's why it caught my attention where instantaneously it was over 50%.
Right,
And so-
right. It
so
can,
it's-
yeah,
yeah.
but I mean,
yeah.
this is also kind of instantaneous in the sense that it's one day, but over the
I
course
think
of
if
a
you poke
year.
around some of these other charts and graphs, they do have these other views, and you can download this data from I think a couple of links away from ERCOT. You can get previous year month by month.
Very
consumption,
good.
if that's the kind of thing that you're interested.
Storage. That energy stored in a battery, is that true?
Well, it could be stored in a battery. It could be pumped hydro. It could be anything that you can do to load shift.
So that is the sources where you buy low, sell high or pump them.
I think that's what you were talking about. Yes.
So like you were talking about earlier, the utility scale battery storage, with the duct.
Yeah.
You look there at 5 o'clock this afternoon and they're drawing heavily out of the batteries as the solar goes away. Can you point that out? Right there at 1700. Heavily on the battery?
No, that's not the that's a delta. This is a stacked graph. So the total battery storage is the thickness of that line. It's just pretty small in comparison. The one that ramped up there, we just lost our view. Yeah. Yeah. Natural gas is the ones that can be warmed up and ready to go in a few minutes. Well, it's not substantial. Wind has a big piece there. That's a thick band.
Okay, the battery there, the power storage actually looks like a fairly thick band.
It's a razor thin line. Yeah.
Got it. So what's the line below that? That's natural.
That's gas. Go to the right. There you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's natural gas then. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is the current status of how much battery or pumped hydro storage is available in Texas, which
Not a lot.
not a lot
So-
now, but we know it's growing.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
24 hours yesterday, calendar day, I guess. Yeah, previous day.
Mhm. Great.
So ERCOT.com. We would think it'd be a .org, but it's a .com.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you want to go on to your other part?
Sure. So Colin,
Okay.
if you
Colin.
pull up that email that I sent to you a short while ago, while you're doing that, I'll introduce myself. My name is Ken Sheldon. I came to this club first when I don't know how many of the faces that are here tonight were there at the place over on Richmond near Buffalo Speedway, next door to Texas Workforce Commission. And hung out there a few times, and then shortly after that, I bought this little car. Only it wasn't flooded with water like that. And
Didn't see the water at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at the top part of the car, but that looks kind of painful.
So this was Harvey when the Army borrowed my bedroom to broaden the bayou for a few days, and in so doing, they flooded the vehicle. You'll scroll down there a little bit. So it sat for a while, and a friend of mine came and pulled it out of the garage for me, and washed the carpet, washed the cushions out of the seats, and let his son take apart all the batteries and go get a few dollars of allowance and learn a little bit about electric cars. But what I've done over the last year is to re-battery the thing with a set of Tesla Model S 5.5 kilowatt hour modules. So I'm looking at nominally 30 kilowatt hours plus or minus in the little car now, which is a big change from where it was with lead before. I think I had about 4.5 kilowatt hours. And people might remember with lead batteries, you really don't want to deep discharge them because they never come back after
Right.
that.
Mhm.
A very expensive lesson.
Yeah.
But Yeah, the one here in the center is a kind of a view of the work in progress. I went with wood for my box assembly, not because it's the best material to use. And mechanical engineers will tell me it's not dimensionally stable and it's combustible. And well, I thought, well, it's good enough for most boats, at least most of the boats that have ever been built. It's probably good enough for my vehicle. And yeah, I understand the risk. I understand the shortcuts, and I went with it. And besides, at the time, I could buy a box that was a pretty good fit for my needs, but the fellow wanted about $2,000 for each of the two boxes that I would have needed. One a little more, one a little less. Didn't want to do that. And y'all might remember that during the pandemic, there was an aluminum shortage. And so when I was going to make it myself, I decided, well, that's just nuts. It was going to be $700 worth of material just for a couple of boxes. And forget that. So I pulled out the table saw and went down to Clark's Hardwoods and went to work on this. And if you'll scroll down, what you're looking at is a sideways view of two Tesla Model S modules. They're each about 5 kilowatt hours, 24 volts. So 6 cell groups in series each. They weigh about 55 pounds. So the box and the 2 batteries and the plumbing and the wiring and the fittings all told is probably about 120, 125 pounds. That is the hood. We're looking at the, look at that little circle that you see in the center, right? I guess the expandable boot is part of the steering rack. The little circle there, you can see a tire at the very top. So this is a rotated picture. It didn't look rotated on the phone, but that's how it came across in the email message. But that's the cleanest picture that I had that showed the inside of one of these boxes. The real McCoy is over here. Yeah. So that's this car. If anybody didn't come in that way, we can go out there later. Do you have that message or a 1-slide PDF that I piped in today? And let's see if it'll go bigger on us.
To the left, right above the picture. Yeah. All right.
So this was Bill's suggestion to put together a wiring diagram. I do not have a schematic that goes into every one of the 64 little junctions in the junction box or all the relays. If somebody's really curious, we can go into some of that, but it's a pretty good block diagram of what I've got.
The hairball designation.
That is the name that they give to the box. That's so the Zilla controller is what I'm using. So I'm using a DC motor, not an AC motor. I have no regen capability. And the controller I have is a Zilla 1000 amp. And it's a 2-part system with a microcontroller on one side that has about 30 wires sticking in it. Hence the name, the hairball. And then it has a little SPI over Ethernet. It has an Ethernet cable, a Cat5 cable that goes over to the high voltage unit. That's a pretty good design. It keeps those things separate. It's for interference. Maybe there's a little bit of safety. You can put the Zilla away from all the 12-volt logic. So I've got a current sensor on the jumper that runs between the front and rear halves of the battery. They're not half, the front and rear components. I have the DC and charger assembly is a single component, it's a single module, and that saves a little bit of space, but it does come with some complexity that I'm not really fond of. Okay, we've got some experience on the portable generators. Charging is ground adapters necessary.
Was there a question in there from Mike Zutek in that chat, or?
Yeah, go ahead, pull it back up. I think it was a comment. So the ground adapter is necessary, but not easy.
Okay, so referring to what John was talking about, all right.
So you've got to have a bonded neutral. Is that the issue? You got to have the neutral and ground have to be at the same potential?
They have to be connected, right, John? Yeah, correct, he said.
So he's saying the same experience with his Kia and with a Tesla. So
Okay.
seems like it might be a common requirement.
Yeah, to charge it that way. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Just if you see them there, Colin, let us know so that we can catch people that are online.
All right.
Okay, that's fine. That's good.
So
How long was your drive and what is your battery state charge now?
So it was about a 45-minute trip from I-10 and West Belt to here. I think that's about 18 miles.
Okay.
And I went from 95 to 83.
You're talking about
so-
percent?
Yep.
Percent.
Now,
Okay.
that's the number that comes out of the BMS system.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
good.
really know how accurate that is. If I dig deeper, I see that they have in their data not only a state of charge, but there's also a state of discharge
Mhm.
or depth of discharge, SOC and DOD. And you would think that those ought to add to 100%. They don't.
They don't.
So I'm not sure which of those to believe. I'm guessing that, yeah, it's less charged now than it was when I left. It's more charged now than it was when I took a 3-hour drive earlier this week. So
Okay. You didn't need to look for an outside outlet of the building
no,
here.
we're
Plug
good.
your extension cord into it. Okay.
no,
You're good.
some of the folks might have noticed I got simple. I have a J1772 connector and I bought
you do.
the Orion in part because it supports that protocol.
Mhm.
But I decided that I just didn't like the look of the fill lid that I have found. It's something off an old Shelby Cobra. It's about 6 inches in diameter as opposed to the little bitty small, almost flat shore power boat connector that I have on there. It isn't as safe. If you're going to do one of these things yourself, you need to consider that if something goes wrong and your car should catch fire, a J1772 with the EVSE controlling the power to the car will shut off the power to the car as soon as the BMS burns up and doesn't function anymore. Whereas in my case, if that should happen, I will continue to deliver 240 volts at whatever my circuit breaker in the main distribution panel will allow into that plasma ball. Yep. It won't help. I know that.
And the pack is, what is the number of series connectors to make the voltage?
36.
36. So the Orion has, that's the hairball. 36.
So the Orion is its own hairball that has even more wires. It has for every 12 cells, there are 13 wires. It has a reference and 12 voltages. So I've got for the back batteries, there's the sensor wires, the ground references, the temperature sensors. I've got a bundle of about 38 wires, I think, that go back there. They're all low current, but they are full voltage, right? And they are unfused. So there's if people will monitor sites like a DIY electric car, a few months ago, somebody was running an Orion system and they had a lot of other problems, a lot of mechanical problems and environmental problems with their system. And they managed to catch their voltage sensor harness on fire. And there's no fuse. So, it turns out that if you use, a high quality wire from, Houston Geophysical Wire Company, that you can actually put about 20 amps through one of those 22 gauge wires before the insulation will melt off of it. So since I have 30 something of those, it could be substantial. Right? So there's a risk there. I've done a lot of things that I might do differently if I were building this from scratch. I mean, the current standards would call for there being no high voltage anywhere in the car within a few seconds after there's been a collision. So you should have an inertia sensor in there. And if that is triggered, you need to you need to open the contactors. The contactors need to be inside the battery boxes so that all the high voltage is contained within the battery enclosures. And the definition of high voltage in a car is not the same as the definition of high voltage for a lineman, right? Low voltage for a lineman is 600 volts and medium voltage is 4160. High voltage is 128K. And then there's others. High voltage in the car is 60 volts.
60 is the
So
line.
any traction battery is probably going to exceed that. So to really be safe with the evolving ISO standards, you need to have your contactors inside the box.
Mhm.
All of the production cars that people have are
Mhm.
done this way. And
Yeah.
the contactors need to be open by default. If anything goes wrong, all the
Yeah.
contactors go open.
Yeah.
And the voltage stays inside the metal box.
Yeah, so commercially produced EVs that are typically 400 volts and some of them now going to 800
the
volts are
Porsches
way
800,
above that
yeah.
60 line. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, another good point. I'm using, it's class M cable. So it's high flex cable, but it's still just, I forget whether it's 300 or 600 volt wiring, rating.
Rating.
Which is perfectly fine for my 140, 150 volt system.
Yeah.
But would not be so, you wouldn't have the same safety margin if you had a 400 volt.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So.
Very good. Very good. Some more.
Anyway, so I didn't prepare any kind of, overview presentation, but I'm happy to answer questions if anybody.
Those
if anybody-
photos and that line drawing tell
Okay.
a whole
All right.
big story. That's
Okay.
really good. So more questions, either folks online or in the room here.
Pack voltage is a little over 144. It's closer to 150 fully charged, but it's similar to a dozen 12 volt batteries. So the Tesla modules, of which I have 6, are more or less equivalent to 24 volts.
Okay.
I haven't
Tesla
looked at
module
them
prices.
I haven't looked at the price of Tesla modules for, about a year and a half now since I bought mine. Yeah, at the time I got these, they were, anywhere from $900 to $1,600 a piece.
Where did you get them?
From an online vendor I will not use again.
Oh,
They're extremely helpful and very responsive with lots of great technical information until they had my money. And then they stopped taking my calls and I wound up having to reach out to manufacturers to get details on the CAN bus signals for the Orion and the Charger. So I won't speak negatively on anything that might be recorded, but if anybody wants to ask me about a particular vendor, I can tell you whether I would not recommend them. But
okay.
I will say the folks at EV West, from whom I bought a few minor components, not much else, have been very helpful at answering technical, detailed engineering questions. So
Good to know.
so if I were going to buy something else, I might consider doing some work with them.
Good to know. All right. Very good.
All right.
Well, thanks a lot, Ken. I mean, this has been great. Yeah. Okay. So we've got all kinds of brain cells clicking away here today. This is great. And of course, Emma's here and she just got back from a trip. And so next month, we're going to ask her to show some photos of EVs in Taiwan because she was paying attention while she was there, not just visiting relatives. So that's something else that we'll add to next month. So any other comments? So I encourage everybody, Evolve, like I said, is looking for volunteers, both people and cars for the Houston Auto Show. Consider that. I think the cars, if they go, they have to be there the entire time. But one of the things they did offer is you can get a substitute car so that if it's your only car is the EV, you won't be without for the 4-day period. Yeah, there is a list and folks here should have gotten that email. Did anybody here in the room not get the? All right. All right. So, yeah.
Census as to what day or what time of day to participate within the group here, because, well, they're drawing, Evolve is drawing from everywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I haven't volunteered yet, but I will. I was just wondering when other.
Yeah. So they have a form and you just tell them when you're available and they're going to work, starting the 25th, that's Wednesday, and then 26th, 7th, 8th, and I think part of the 9th Sunday. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then of course, all the different car makers are going to be showing cars there. I mean, last year they had ride and drives. I got to drive a Ford Mach-E last year. Yeah. Right. That should be available since that's out now. So besides the opportunity. Yeah, very good. Very good to see that. So yeah, it's just exciting because it's known that the auto dealers are the ones that put on the auto show here in Houston. In other cities, it can be other different groups. And traditionally, the auto dealers only like to show cars that they can sell. And they haven't had too many EVs until recently. So that's why the Houston Auto Show has been very low on EV participation until just recently. And so now it's just great that we get to see those. So we get to, of course, learn about people doing their conversions and things like that. But we also have choices of cars.
Several years ago, someone from this club had a Tesla and he drove it in and they swarmed him right away and said, "Get out of here." Right?
That's that. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who that was, but Steve Pace. Yeah, Steve Pace of the Houston Tesla Owners Club. And
Why has my car been pulled out back out of the? So I was taking Steven to the airport and he looks at his Tesla app and he says, "Why is the car back outside the NRG?" And about that time, I got a text from somebody that said the Tesla's been kicked out of the auto show. But that was yeah, that was I don't know, 5-6 years ago.
that was a number of years ago. And then there was a way that a Tesla got snuck in, because if you've been to the auto show, you know that there's a lot of aftermarket companies that sell you new rims and things like that. And they were displaying some on a Tesla. So they had that kind of snuck in. Or the company did wraps was what it was. Okay. Somebody who did some servicing on any make of car. And so they managed to sneak one in unbeknownst to the auto dealers that year. So, yeah. So.
So is it still run by a dealers association or? Okay.
What we had last year, and I believe an even bigger presence this year, because Evolve did a reconfiguration of their organization, and they usually capitalize the E and the V of Evolve, that they've got a space there. Last year they did too, and they've got a space there, and that's where they would like folks who are knowledgeable, like everybody here, to talk to members of the public that come up and explain to them the realities versus all the clickbait articles that we all see.
I just like to ask, the charging, I've heard that the F-150 Lightning charger will do take 95 amps. Is anybody aware of what the amp ranges are starting from 16? Okay. Is that the highest one we've seen? That's what I've seen on the forum. Okay.
For home charging.
For home charging.
80 amps.
Yeah, that's the spec. It's crazy. That's the level 2 spec, 19.2 kilowatts.
And I think that's the full up model that has all capabilities. There's different models of Lightnings you can buy. That's the most expensive.
100 amp circuit going out to their garage. That's a little bit much. And so probably going to have a lot of houses rewired or put in a bigger main panel for their house to charge that. And I saw a article today on average cost of putting in a charger was like $1,700, unless you need a new panel, then it jumps up to around $7,000.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got mine done.
I bought my EVA for $180.
Yeah.
100 amps up down on my garage and a charge point. 3 years ago, I spent $2,200, and most of that
was paying the landscaper to dig the damn trench to run the wire around the 100-foot wire around from my panel to my garage.
That reminds me of an article I read in the latest EV Charged magazine. The company that came out a while ago with a car charging system that is non-grid connected, goes in a parking space, has solar on top, has battery and electronics underneath that. And because of trenching costs and connection costs, they say that I think one of these sells for about $65,000, that for a lot of businesses that want to put in charging, it's cheaper to put this in, and it includes lifetime electricity because it's solar powered. So not only you save the trenching, you save any electrical costs, demand charges. Yeah. And so it was really interesting to read that article about, and you think of the economics. I mean, you look at the total cost of something. I mean, we think of the, what's the cost of the charger? Like you're saying, you bought a 16 amp EVSE, electric vehicle servicing equipment charger, and, you look at that cost, but for a business that wants to put in some charging for employees or for customers or whatever, it according to this article, that it's really cost effective to just have an independent weighted system that just goes in, it can go into one or multiple parking places. And also they were talking about they could charge at level 1, level 2, or do fast charging. If they take like 4 of these together, and you could do fast charging so that if there's some business that has fleet vehicles and they come in and they need to charge quickly and then get them back out on the road. And so it was really interesting. And they had an acronym in there. DRR, Daily Range Replenishment. I thought that was interesting, an acronym I hadn't heard before, because if you've got, I think the example was like government vehicles, they may not drive a lot every day, and they sit around a lot. And so you could have one of these units and you could put 2, 4 level 1 chargers. Yeah, either way, but daily range replenishment was the metric that they needed to satisfy. And that's something I don't know that any of us have really dealt with. I mean, we all do daily replenish the range of our cars typically. I mean, people that sleep at night. Yeah, Bill.
U.S. Postal Service, has anybody heard that they're going to transition to electric trucks?
What's anybody heard? What have you heard, Seth?
They haven't actually done it yet. They came up with a proposal for replacing current trucks, and the initial proposal was only going to be 10% electric. And then Congress gave them, in the act that just passed, the Inflation Reduction Act, enough money that the initial order buy is going to be 40% BEV. But I don't seriously expect any of that to come online before the end of FY23.
Okay, yeah, that's something to watch with the postal vehicles.
I wonder if we could contact the local USPS guy that might be in that loop in terms of doing that conversion, whether we could have him speak here and learn from us.
So you mentioned the word conversion, or just, okay, just purchase of, okay.
Offer to go.
Well, just in the same way that I and some of the folks in this club have gone to dealerships and we've educated salespeople what they have on their lot to sell, yeah, because they didn't understand. So yeah, that's right. If we could, I don't know how much local input the post office would take in their vehicles versus how much that's a centralized decision, because they buy tens of thousands of vehicles. I mean, I have on occasion when I've driven through small towns, you see just a regular old car, and you see the person's, back when cars had bench seats, you'd see the driver sitting on the right-hand side with their, I assume their left foot, but you could see their left hand on the steering wheel. And that's what the local, 20 house area had their mail delivered by typical Chevy Caprice or whatever. And it was marked U.S. Postal Service on the back of the vehicle. But I don't think there's that many of those. They're more of the official ones that are bought in bulk.
The old baby Cherokee Jeep made a right-hand drive version that they sold in the States for postal vehicles.
Sure. Okay. Are we ready to wrap up? All kinds of good stuff. Anybody want to bring up any other topics? So as I said, we've got exciting stuff next month. Both the Octopus Energy gentleman, Chris George, and Emma talking about stuff that she's seen in the real world. I should say the outside world, outside of the US. Chris George is our representative. We've been trying to get him for a number of months, and it just seems like maybe it'll gel for February now. Octopus Energy. And so they provide 100% rep retail electric provider service in our service area. And they also got something going on with EVs as far as, I'm not sure if it's renting them out or exactly, but that's something for Chris to tell us more about what they're doing. So yeah, bring questions for him. So, all right. Thanks everybody. We'll see you next month. Yep.